At our big family Easter, I helped cook, set up the backyard hunt, and even covered the catering, only for my stepmother Clarissa to hiss, "Stop embarrassing us, freeloader," as my father Robert nodded. Stay with me as I reveal how I destroyed their privileged lives in 72 hours. The day had started early. I was up before the sun, dragging folding tables across the yard, wiping down chairs, and making sure every egg in the hunt had something decent inside. I had even run out to get last-minute vegan platters, because Clarissa's aunt was suddenly on a new diet. Nobody else offered to help. Leo stayed in his room playing music too loud, and Robert just gave me a list and told me to make sure it all feels effortless. By noon, the backyard was full of people. Kids were laughing, parents were drinking, and the decorations I spent days planning were getting compliments. No one knew I had paid for nearly all of it. Not that I needed the praise, I just wanted to feel like I was part of something. Clarissa floated between guests like she owned the place. She wore a pale blue dress and fake pearls, her voice all sugar whenever someone was close. But when she passed by me, all that sweetness vanished. She leaned in, eyes cold, and hissed those words like they were meant to slice. "Stop embarrassing us, freeloader." And my father, Robert, he didn't flinch. He didn't correct her. He didn't laugh it off. He looked right at me and gave a slow nod, like he agreed. I stood still for a moment. The napkin in my hand slipped, brushing the grass. My face burned. I looked around to see if anyone had noticed. No one did. Leo was by the drinks table, laughing with his friends. He didn't even glance at me. I walked inside the house and stood in the kitchen, where the noise from outside was softer. My palms felt sweaty. The air smelled like roasted lamb and rosemary, and it suddenly made me feel sick. That's when I decided. I looked around the room. The speaker playing music in the corner? Mine. The Wi-Fi router? Also mine. The generator out back? Bought with my money. The credit card that paid for the catering was still in my name. They wanted me to be invisible. Fine. I could disappear, and take everything I brought with me. In that moment, I knew I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was just going to start removing the pieces of their perfect little party, quietly, one by one. Let them enjoy their celebration without me. Let them see what their life looks like without the so-called freeloader. The day was warmer than I expected. Sweat gathered under my arms as I dragged yet another folding table across the backyard. The sun was already high, turning everything bright and sharp. My hands were red from hauling boxes, my shoes were damp from the grass, and I hadn't sat down once since morning. The egg hunt setup took longer than it should have. Clarissa insisted on golden eggs this year, and of course, she didn't actually help hide them. I had driven across town to pick up vegan platters for her aunt, who decided at the last minute she no longer ate dairy or soy. I paid for it all out of my own pocket. Clarissa just smiled and said, "You've always been good at errands," then went back to doing nothing in a sundress and heels. Inside the kitchen, the caterers looked confused. They were missing half the serving trays Clarissa swore she'd ordered. I loaned them mine. I always did. When I brought out another pitcher of lemonade, someone had already taken my seat at the table. No one noticed. By the time most of the guests arrived, I was sweating through my clothes. I was just fixing a crooked napkin dispenser when I heard my father's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Maya's just a visitor now," he said. I froze, hands still on the napkin. There was a pause, long enough for people to notice. Some turned their heads. Some kept sipping their wine like they hadn't heard. I slowly looked up. Robert stood with his drink raised, smiling at the group. He said it like a joke, like it was nothing, like it didn't punch a hole right through my chest. Clarissa stood beside him. She didn't even pretend to be surprised. She just looked at me and smirked, like it was a private joke between the two of them. My stomach dropped. I glanced around the table. Leo was sitting with his friends, pushing a grape around his plate with a fork. He didn't laugh, but he didn't speak up either. He just looked away like he couldn't see me. Nobody asked what Robert meant. Nobody said, "Isn't this her house too?" Nobody asked who paid for the food or set up the tables. They just smiled and moved on. I swallowed and forced a smile. My hands were shaking, but I kept rearranging the napkin. I didn't speak. I didn't argue. I just walked back to the kitchen and stood near the sink, gripping the counter with both hands. My reflection in the microwave looked tired. My face was flushed from the heat and humiliation. Visitor. After everything. After I paid bills they ignored, helped raise Leo, covered emergencies they didn't want to deal with. After I stepped in when Robert's business tanked and Clarissa had breakdowns that required spa weekend. Now I was a visitor. But that moment, that quiet, sharp moment, changed everything. I didn't cry. I didn't storm out. I just started thinking, planning. I would let them finish their perfect little party. But I had already decided I wasn't going to be their safety net anymore. Not after this. Let them see what life looks like when the visitor finally leaves. The music cut out first. A tiny pop, then silence. No one noticed right away, People kept chatting, kids kept running through the grass, and Clarissa's fake laugh rose above the noise like always. But I noticed. I was the one who unplugged the speaker. It was mine, after all. I wrapped the cord around it slowly, neatly, like I was just cleaning up. No big scene. I didn't throw anything. I didn't slam drawers or make some dramatic exit. I was just taking back what was mine. Next was the Wi-Fi router. I bent down by the shelf where it sat blinking quietly and pulled the plug. The lights went out. Just like that, the house dropped offline. No card swipes. No Clarissa's niece live streaming her outfit. No family group text update. Silence spread in layers. I carried it to my car and placed it gently in the front seat beside a box with my things. The portable generator came last. I had lent it to Robert last year when the shed lost power during a storm. He never gave it back. Of course he didn't. It was useful. I walked behind the garden shed, tugged the extension cord free, and hauled the generator into my trunk. It was heavy, but I didn't stop to rest. I could feel something shifting in my chest, slow and steady, like a long breath I'd been holding finally letting go. Back in the house, voices started changing. The music was gone, and people were finally noticing. Why's the music off? Anyone got signal? Clarissa's aunt stepped into the kitchen. I was walking back through the hallway when she stopped me. She looked me over with a wrinkled brow, like I was something out of place. "Excuse me," she said, lifting her chin. "Would you mind refilling the lemon water? And maybe check the bathroom? I think it's out of soap." I stared at her. For a full 2 seconds, I didn't say anything. Then I nodded. "Of course." She smiled like she'd just solved a problem and walked off. I stood there for a moment, my hands at my sides, trying to keep the anger out of my face. I didn't move toward the water. I didn't go near the bathroom. I just turned, walked back to the front door, and stepped outside. I didn't glance at the decorations. I didn't care about the pastel balloons or the carefully labeled food platters I'd ordered. What caught my eye was Leo, inside the kitchen, pressed up against the window. His hands were flat on the glass. His eyes were locked on me. He'd seen me unplug the router. He'd watched me carry out the speaker, the boxes, the generator. And now he was just standing there, silent. I didn't wave. Neither did he. I opened the car door, got in, and started the engine. The noise of the party faded behind me. No screeching tires. No big goodbye. Just the low hum of the engine and the feeling that something had finally snapped into place. In the mirror, I saw Leo still at the window, palms against the glass like he didn't know what to do. Behind him, guests looked around, confused, their conversations slowing. Clarissa was talking fast, her arms moving, Robert nodding stiffly beside her. But I didn't care. I pulled out of the driveway without a sound. I closed my apartment door and let the silence sink in. No voices, no background music, no Clarissa. Just the quiet hum of my fridge and the slight creak of the floor under my shoes. I didn't even take off my coat. I walked straight to my desk. My laptop was still open from last night. I sat down, opened a browser tab, and began typing. My hands weren't shaking. They were steady, fast, focused. Everything I was about to do had been sitting in the back of my mind for months, maybe years. I had just never let myself admit it. First, Robert's car insurance. He couldn't get approved a loan when he bought that SUV last year. Bad credit, missed payments, and somehow still driving around like the world owed him a parade. I co-signed so the interest wouldn't destroy him. And when the bills came late, I paid them. Quietly, like always. I logged into the account, clicked cancel coverage, and confirmed it. The page loaded with a red banner. Your policy has been canceled effective immediately. I took a screenshot. Next was the HVAC autopay for their house. When the unit broke last summer, and the quote came in over $9,000, Robert had frozen. Clarissa disappeared to a wellness retreat. Leo said nothing. I had guaranteed the loan, because winter was coming and Leo still lived there. Every month I paid. I stopped checking if Robert was even pretending to cover his share. I found the login, turned off autopay, and removed my card. Then I emailed the finance company and told them I was no longer a guarantor. Another screenshot. Then the utilities. Electric, gas, water, even the internet. My name was on every one. They needed a responsible payer to get better rates. And I had agreed, thinking it was temporary. It wasn't. I logged into each account one by one, removed my name, deleted my card info, and scheduled disconnection notices where needed. Another screenshot. Then another. And another. When I was done, I dragged all the images into a single email. The subject line was simple. Guest privileges revoked. I didn't add a message. I didn't need to. I knew Robert would see the screenshots. He'd recognize every account, every cancellation. He'd feel it in the silence of the dead Wi-Fi, the lack of heat, the car parked with no coverage. I pressed send and sat back. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. My reflection looked different. Not smug. Not angry. Just free. I stood up and poured myself a glass of water. Cold. Clear. Mine. They had made it clear I didn't belong in that house anymore, so I made it official. I took myself out of it, thread by thread, number by number. No screaming. No drama. Just digital keys turning in quiet locks. Let them figure it out. I didn't know them explanations. I had given them years, money, time, silence. Now they could sit in their silence, too. I left the laptop open, just in case they called. The first call came mid-morning, just as I was brushing my teeth. I glanced at my phone, Clarissa. I let it ring. I watched her name disappear from the screen like smoke fading into air. She called again 3 minutes later. Then again. Then twice more after that. By the time I finished brushing and walked into the kitchen, the screen was filled with her name. 6 missed calls. No messages, just desperate silence waiting on the other end. I didn't pick up. I made coffee slowly. I stirred the cream in small circles, listening to the quiet of my own apartment. No shouting. No guilt. No Clarissa asking me to do just one more thing. A little after noon, the voicemails started. I didn't play them. I just turned my phone face down on the counter and opened my laptop. Let the pressure build. Let them sweat. By early evening, I was curled on the couch, halfway through a movie I'd been meaning to watch for weeks, when the screen lit up again. It was Leo this time. Not a call, just a message. Elio, AC's dead. You're doing? That was it. No hi, no how are you? Just a question dropped like a hook. I stared at the text for a long moment. I could almost picture him, standing in that too-hot living room, the fan useless, sweat on his neck, staring at his dead phone in disbelief, waiting for me to fix it. Again, I typed my answer slowly. Me, ask your real family. Visitors don't fix emergencies. I watched the 3 little dots appear, then vanish. He didn't reply. For a few minutes, nothing happened. The movie played on, but I wasn't watching anymore. Then my phone rang. Robert. I didn't move. He let it go to voicemail. A second later, the icon appeared. I waited. I didn't want to hear it, but I had to. I tapped play. His voice was different. Not angry. Not loud. It was thin, like he didn't quite know how to form the words. Maya, we need to talk. I think things have gotten out of hand here. Your stepmother's panicking. Leo's upset. We're all caught off guard, okay? And maybe I should have. Maybe I didn't realize how much you were doing. You've always been responsible, and I know sometimes we didn't say it, but we need you. He paused. Just call me back, okay? Let's talk this through. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. The air in the room suddenly felt heavier. They were unraveling, one by one, like dominoes tipping over, exactly the way I had lined them up. And this was only the beginning. By noon, I was done ignoring him. I'd let the calls pile up all morning, Robert's number flashing again and again, like he couldn't decide if he was furious or desperate. Maybe both. I made coffee slowly, fed my plants, even wiped down my countertops just to avoid looking at my phone. But I couldn't dodge it forever. So I sat down, pressed call, and listened to the ringing. He picked up on the second ring. Maya, he said, and already his voice sounded worn out. Finally, I didn't say anything. I waited. I know you're upset, he started. But don't you think this is a little extreme? I blinked. Extreme? I mean, come on. You're canceling things left and right, leaving us without power, without coverage. Leo's confused, Clarissa's. Well, she's rattled. And now the AC's dead. And the fridge is... Look, you've made your point, okay? I sat back in my chair. My coffee had gone cold. You think I'm overreacting, I said flatly. I just think you let one comment ruin everything. You're blowing it out of proportion. I laughed once, sharp, dry. One comment. He hesitated. You called me a guest, Robert, I said slowly, clearly. In front of everyone. After I paid for the food. After I set up your backyard. After I funded your party. You know I didn't mean it like that. No. I asked. How did you mean it? Because from where I stood, it sounded like you wanted to remind me that no matter what I did, I didn't belong. You and Clarissa made it very clear. Maya, he sighed. We've all said things we didn't mean. No, I cut in. You didn't say something you didn't mean. You said something you'd been thinking for a long time. I just finally heard it out loud. There was a pause. A long one. You've used me like a walking credit card for years, I said. Co-signed your loans. Paid your bills. Covered emergencies you didn't even pretend to manage. You never asked how I was doing. You just assumed I'd take care of it. I didn't think. No, you didn't, I snapped. And now you're going to learn what it's like to live without your human ATM. His breath caught on the other end. Maya, wait, can we just talk about this? This is me talking, I said. This is me finally saying no. I heard him stammer, start to say something, then stop. I didn't give him time to find the words. I hung up. The silence that followed was immediate and total. I stared at my phone for a second, then placed it face down on the table. My chest was rising and falling like I'd just run a mile, but I didn't regret a word. For the first time, I wasn't asking to be understood. I wasn't hoping for a change. I was finished hoping. They had drawn the line. Now they'd feel the distance. It was nearly midnight when I heard the knock. Not loud, not frantic, just steady. I was still up, curled on the couch with a documentary playing low in the background, more for noise than interest. I paused, waiting to see if I'd imagined it. Then it came again. I walked to the door, checked the peephole, and felt a small knot twist in my stomach. Leo. I opened the door without a word. He looked worn out. Hoodie half-zipped, sneakers muddy, face pale. He didn't smile. He just stood there, like he wasn't sure if I'd even let him in. I stepped aside, and he walked in slowly. He didn't sit. Just stood near my kitchen table, eyes scanning the apartment. I stayed by the door, arms crossed, waiting. Clarissa found the HVAC leans, he said quietly. I didn't answer. She freaked. Started screaming at Dad in front of everyone. Said he was hiding debt. Blamed him for everything. Said he was ruining her life. I leaned my back against the door. She's threatening to kick him out, Leo went. Maybe she already did. I didn't stay to find out. He ran a hand through his hair, eyes landing on the boxes near my desk. I hadn't even unpacked them all. Old files, receipts, binders from when I used to help pay their bills. My name was printed across every envelope. You really took everything, he said. I nodded. Yeah, everything that was mine. Leo's face tensed. I didn't know. About the liens. About any of it. I didn't say anything. He took a slow breath. Clarissa told me Dad took out the HVAC line. Never mentioned you. Why would she? I said. The version of me that exists in that house is just convenient, helpful, quiet, invisible. Leo's mouth twitched like he wanted to argue, but couldn't. I didn't know you paid my tuition, he said finally, almost a whisper. I walked to the fridge, grabbed a glass, and filled it with water. I handed it to him without a word. He took it and looked at me, like he didn't know whether to drink or cry. I thought Dad was covering it, he said. He told me he was. I didn't ask questions. I shrugged. You didn't want to know. It was easier that way. He looked down into the glass. I don't know what to say. I sat on the edge of the couch and looked at him. You want to fix us? He nodded once. Then start by carrying your own weight. His eyes lifted. I didn't say it with anger. Just truth. I wasn't going to play the mother, the wallet, the fixer anymore. If he wanted a relationship, he'd have to build one, not just show up when things cracked. I'm not coming back to fix things at the house, I said. I'm not patching up messes I didn't make. Leo nodded slowly. I get it. I wasn't sure if he did, but he was here. And that was more than anyone else had done. So I let the silence hang between us. Not angry, not bitter, just real. He sat down in the chair, still holding the water. And for once, he looked like someone ready to listen. The next day, the messages started before sunrise. Robert, you're fracturing this family. Robert, Leo's upset. Clarissa's furious. Are you happy now? Robert, you made your point. Now fix this before it gets worse. Robert, Maya, don't be cruel. Each text hit my screen like a drop of water on stone. Constant, dripping, annoying, but powerless to crack anything real. I didn't reply. Not yet. I wanted him to feel it. The silence. The distance. The weight of everything I used to carry for them now dropped. By noon, he had sent me 16 texts. 2 voicemails. A photo of Clarissa looking devastated on the couch. One message even read, "We're all hurting. Let's come back together." I almost laughed. This man, who called me a visitor in front of 30 people, was now sending me sad couch photos? I opened my email instead. Subject line, a decade of receipts. I didn't even bother with a greeting. Just started listing line by line. You say I'm fracturing the family? Let me tell you how it was built. $20 gas cards for me, every birthday. Meanwhile, Leo got a brand new gaming rig. I worked 2 jobs to stay afloat, while you co-signed Leo's spring break to Cancun. Clarissa's spa retreats, billed to the joint account we opened for emergencies. My college fund, dried up when Clarissa needed a kitchen remodel. Leo's tuition? I paid half of it, while you told him it came from your investments. Every time the electric bill hit red, it was my card that saved the house. And your thank yous? 1 brunch a year, with an expired bottle of wine. You didn't build a family, Robert. You built a pyramid, with me at the bottom, holding it all up. And when I finally walked away, the whole thing started shaking. That's not me fracturing it. That's the truth catching up. Then I typed the final line slowly. You weaponized my loyalty. Now wield the consequences. I attached copies of every receipt, transfer, and invoice I still had. Not because I wanted repayment, but because I wanted the record to exist. The truth in black and white. I hit send. Then I tossed my phone across the couch and stared at the ceiling. No more guilt. No more bargaining. No more trying to earn a place I already paid for in full. Let them scream. Let them flail. Let them figure out how to plug in their own damn speaker. I gave them 10 years. They gave me silence, debt, and half-hearted birthday texts. Now they could live with the silence I chose. The The call came just as the sun dipped behind the buildings, casting long shadows across my living room. I was curled on the couch with a cup of tea, finally feeling like I had a space that belonged only to me. My phone buzzed softly on the coffee table. It was Leo. I let it ring for a second before answering. His voice was quiet, almost hollow. Clarissa kicked Dad out. I sat up straight. Wait, what? She threw him out this morning. All his stuff, bags, boxes, even his old golf clubs, dumped right on the driveway. I blinked, gripping the mug in my hands. Why? The HVAC lean came through. Technicians showed up with paperwork. Official. Ugly. He let out a short laugh. It wasn't amused. She flipped. Said he lied. Said he ruined her life. She didn't even let him finish explaining. I was silent. Turns out, Leo added, he'd been hiding the notices. Shoved them in drawers. Thought if he stalled long enough, you'd come back. Thought you'd fix it like always. I didn't speak. I just stared at the corner of the coffee table, the tiny chip in the wood I kept meaning to fix. They're bankrupt, Maya. Like actually, Clarissa's credit cards are frozen. The power bill's overdue. I don't even know if the house is still in her name. I felt it then, not triumph, not anger. Just this strange, heavy calm. Like something inside me had finally landed after floating in the air too long. He had bet on me caving. He thought I'd hear about the mess and rush back in with my checkbook, like I always did. He believed I needed them more than they ever needed me. But he was wrong. I was the foundation, I said quietly, more to myself than to Leo. I held it all up. Leo didn't argue. He didn't even try to soften it. Yeah, he said. You did. And now that I was gone, the whole thing had collapsed. Months passed. Life settled into a quiet rhythm, steady, real mine. I started working part-time at a small bookstore a few blocks away. It was quiet most days, and the regulars remembered my name. I liked the way it smelled, paper, dust, and coffee from the corner stand. For once, nothing around me felt like a ticking clock or a mess waiting to explode. One afternoon, a small brown package appeared at my door. No return address. No note. Just my name, written in familiar handwriting. I opened it carefully. Inside was the silver watch Robert had borrowed years ago. The one I'd forgotten was even mine. Next to it was a torn corner of notebook paper, scrawled in blue ink, barely centered on the page. I forgot how to function without you. No greeting. No apology. Just those words, like they were supposed to fix something. I stared at the watch, turning it over once in my palm. Then I folded the paper in half and slid it into the back of a drawer. I dropped the watch in a donation bag with some old jackets. I didn't need reminders. That evening, Leo showed up. He stood in my doorway holding a crooked cake box, his hair sticking up like he'd been running his hands through it all day. Chocolate raspberry, he said. Like Mom used to make. Sort of. You made this? I watched 3 YouTube videos. It was that or by the grocery store one. I let him in. We ate in quiet, the good kind. No tension. No pretending. Just cake and 2 people who'd survived the same storm. You still want to fix us? I asked. He nodded. I do. Then keep showing up. And as we sat there, candlelight soft against the walls, I felt it clearly. The sweetest revenge isn't rage. It's silence. It's watching them choke on the crumbs of the world I built for them.